Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Coming to the blog post we want to share with you, of course, review the latest in social media and technology. Be sure to subscribe to the ChrisVossShow.com email list so you can get all the latest updates that we put out, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you get all the latest stuff. We have all the major phone companies sending us all the coolest and latest phones, so you want to subscribe so you can see that, and also the social media and tech stuff that I review and everything else going on in social media. So be sure to do that. We're doing a video phone versus comparison here between two different devices. We're doing one between the Verizon Motorola Droid Razer M and the other is going to be the Virgin Mobile HTC One V. Now, we compare all phones and any phones. We're not just picking on anybody. Somebody wrote me the other day and said, sure, put a weak phone against a strong phone. We compare all phones so that you, the consumer, can be at home and see how these phones work, see how they benchmark, and decide which phone or service might work best for you. So it's really up to you in that end. We're not picking on anybody. I thought that was funny. So, with the Motorola, this is available through VerizonWireless.com. That's VerizonWireless.com. And the HTC is available through VirginMobileUSA.com. That's VirginMobileUSA.com. Both great companies. Tell them Chris Voss sent you. Be sure to go to their websites and check out their phones. With the two devices, let's get into the specs and details here. On the Droid Razr, what we're looking at is this is an awesome monster of a little phone. It's 4.82 in height, 2.39 inches in width, and 0.33 inches in thickness. Very thin. Weight is 4.44 ounces. It runs on Android 4.04 Ice Cream Sandwich, so the latest and greatest version of Ice Cream Sandwich. Has a dual-core processor with 1 gigabyte of RAM. It has 8 gigabytes internal memory and supports up to 32 gigabytes micro SD card. Has a display of 4.3 Super AMOLED Advanced Display, QHD resolution 960 by 540. Battery's pretty massive too. It has a battery of 2,000 milliamps. Usage time should get about 20 hours out of it. Standby time approximately up to 17 days according to the website. The camera has an 8 megapixel camera on the back. Front-facing HD camera is 0.3 megapixel, 720 on the front-facing HD, and on the back you've got 1080p video capture. So that runs us down with the Motorola. Let's take a look at what the HTC One V has in it. With this, we're looking at a 4.74 inch height, 2.35 width, 0.36 thickness. The weight is 4.06 ounces. Battery is 7.2 hours max. Talk time, standby 252 hours max. Has a 1500 milliamp battery in it. The display is a LCD color TFT resolution 480 by 800 pixels. 3.7 diagonal screen, Super LCD Sony. It runs on the Android version 4.0 plus HTC Sense 4. I believe on this device we have this upgraded to 4.03. We'll check that in a second. The processor in it is a 1 gigahertz Qualcomm Snapdragon processor, 4 gigabytes internal storage, raw hardware, 912 megabytes internal storage available to user, and 512 megabytes of RAM. With the device, it only runs on the 3G network, not on 4G, and it does have a USB, micro USB connector that you can connect with, and I believe it has an expandable memory card in the bottom where you can expand up to 32 gigabytes. We'll show you that here in a second. And yes, that is correct. The camera is a 5 megapixel camera, and it has no front-facing camera. The back camera will give you 720 HD in pixels. So let's take a look at both these devices. Now, as promised, we know that there's 4.04 Ice Cream Sandwich on the Motorola. Let's take a look at what's in this device here. We've got so many phones, I tend to forget from time to time what is in each one, and they're constantly updating and changing. So it looks like we have, software-wise, looks like we have software-wise, this is, yes, running on 4.03 Android version, HTC Sense, so you can get an idea of that. So it's for a little phone, the Virgin Mobile, it's got some of the latest software that's coming out that is available on most phones at this point in time. There is Jelly Bean, but that's still rolling out, and we still have yet, I think, to see phones coming out with Jelly Bean, and there might be one or two at this point in time. So, as you can see with both devices, there's I think there's a small speaker under this curved part where it says Motorola. There's a front-facing camera. You have your back button, your home button, and your recent apps button. You also have on the HTC a small speaker for calling. There's no front camera on this. You have a back button, a home button, and a recent apps button. Both devices are pretty thin and small, easy to fit in the pocket and take and utilize. They both seem to do a great job for what you want to take and use them for. They don't seem to lag or give you problems in any area whatsoever, but we'll get into some of that. So let's take a look at the backs of both devices. On the backs of both devices, you can see here, Motorola's got this nice, sleek background. We've got a camera eye lens here. We've got the flash lamp area. And we've got a speaker that's right here. Now, when I first saw this, I was kind of concerned because I'm like, wow, I set that down and I'm not going to be able to hear anything. The speaker on the Motorola is very powerful. I'm actually quite surprised and pleasantly surprised. So don't let that fool you when it comes down to it, especially when you take it for test drive. With the HTC, you're looking at, there's the camera eye, your lamp, flash. You have the Virgin Mobile logo, and you have Beats audio here with the speaker. Speaker is curved up, so it does get muffled when it's laying flat. The Beats audio sound quality is great. It gives you a equalizer sort of bass enhancement to the sound. I tend to really like it. As soon as you plug an earphone into the earphone jack, the Beats audio will activate it. It's a great product if you have the Beats audio headphones and earphones to be able to listen to. And I really like them. Now you can turn it off if you so choose. That's also something you can take and do. Now, the bottom pops off the One V, and you can insert your micro SD card here to be able to expand the memory up to 32 gigabytes of RAM. So very cool that way. Okay, so now here you can see the bottom of the most devices. Not much to see here. We've got a microphone hole here on the angle cut of the Motorola. We've got a microphone hole on the bottom edge of the HTC. Along the tops of both devices, let's take a look at these. You can see here we have a earphone jack, and we have a power button, and we have an earphone jack, and it looks like we have an indicator light. Okay, folks, so down the right side of the device on the Verizon Motorola, we have a small rocker for volume up and volume down. We have a nice kind of chrome colored power button. Down the HTC One, we have a rocker button for up and down for volume. Flipping both the devices around, what we're looking at on the HTC One is we're looking at the USB charging port for this device right here. And then you can see on the Verizon Motorola, we've got a port here to take and do the charging. Now, the one thing this device does have, it has a side panel which pulls aside. You can see it really here. There's a SIM card area for you to put your SIM card in, and there's also a place for you to put your micro SD card. Alright, so comparative-wise, both devices have pretty much your standard Android experience. There are some differences, though. Let's take a look at some of them. With the Motorola, they have a different setup where you can go to your, by flipping from left to right, you can go to a quick settings mode instead of where with most Androids you have a finite or infinite swipe from left to right that you can go through in different screens. Now, you can get to other screens that are available on the Motorola, and you can see here you can add pages and all that good stuff. One thing that is cool about the Motorola is it has this really wild animated background that you can take and do, animated wallpaper, if you will. It has a number of wallpapers you can take and check through. It also, of course, has the same widget process that you find with any of the Androids that most people like, where you can create widgets and all that sort of good stuff. But you can see here you can also do this wallpaper, where you can have live wallpapers, galleries, wallpapers, all that sort of good stuff. So it's pretty cool that way. A lot of people like the Android product because of the ability to take and create different widgets and stuff like that they can load into their systems. You can see some of them here. And they like that over some of the other devices out there in the marketplace. Notification menu-wise, they're pretty much the same sort of thing you're going to be looking at for notifications and all that good stuff. Okay, so here you can see the speed test devices that both took and got. Now, keep in mind the HTC runs on the Virgin Mobile Network with 3G only for this particular device. So there are some definite limits as to how much data the process can download and upload. Comparatively, you can see the results on the Motorola very fast. Okay, so here we can see the Geekbench 2 scores on both these devices. Now, the great thing about these apps is they're free and downloadable. Most of them are free and downloadable on the Android system, so you can be able to follow along at home with your phone and see how the apps produce and maybe how your phone benchmarks in comparison. The Motorola, of course, is 1420 against 455 on the HTC One V. It's obviously a much more faster and newer phone. You can see it also has more of a faster processor, which does help it, of course. We'll page down through these. Of course, you can pause this anytime if you want to really look at the individual numbers that are on here and how they work. But you can get a good idea, I think, from what we're showing you here. And there you go. Okay, so here you can see the scores. We're using the AnTuTu benchmark 2.9.2. The Motorola scored 6809 against the HTC, which scored 3060. And you can see the individual scores as to how the RAM, CPU, integer, 2D graphics, and everything played itself out between the two different devices. Okay, so here we're using the AndEbench benchmarking app. This shows us basically how many threads the devices can each process. You've got the native threads of 5175 on the Motorola and 1496 on the HTC, 132 on the Motorola, HTC 67 for Java. Okay, so here you can see we're using the new AnTuTu 3D rating benchmark. This is one of the newer benchmarks we've seen. The score for the Motorola is 3527 against a score of 2259. You can see here the resolution 540 by 888. Much less, of course, on the HTC, and of course it's just measuring it. Showing us average frames per second, 3D mode 12.7 as opposed to average FPS on the HTC 7.5. Okay, so here we've run Billion Counter app on both devices. We're waiting for one to finish, but you can see here that on the Motorola, it counted to 1 billion through the computerized processes of the phone in 24.885 seconds. We're still waiting for the HTC One to come around, and of course it's taking just a little bit more time. It should come through any second here. 60 seconds, 0.54. Okay, so now we're doing a display test. You can see here on the Motorola, it has a great thorough display. I'm not sure how much this will come out on the tape, but it has a very nice green look to it. The one point that it seems weaker on the HTC is it definitely seems a lot less green on the HTC. You can also see there's some ridges here through the screen as to how it's producing the colors and stuff. I don't know if it's struggling with it or whatever, but it's producing ridges that you don't see here. You see the color is very very well designed output here on the Motorola. Okay, so you can see here with the GL Benchmark 2.1.5 app, the GL benchmark for the Motorola came at 6,674 frames per second. Frames and 59 frames per second as opposed to the HTC One, which did 3541 frames at 31 frames per second. Okay, so here we can see how well each device picks up GPS signals. You can see here on the Motorola, it's getting us to an accuracy within 10 feet. 22 satellites is picking up, 15 in use. In view, the HTC One is picking up 12. In use 8, and it's still getting an accuracy of 10 feet. Looks like it's bouncing around just a little bit. But in that, it's picking up the GPS signals very well through its antenna. Okay, so now we're using the KFS benchmark app. And what this does is this measures frames per second by running a number of graphics through the system. You can see the HTC One V came in at FPS frames per second, 19.62. And the Motorola came in at 39.50. You can see the graphs there as to how well each did. Okay, so now you can see how both these devices took and fared using the Passmark performance system. The system for the Motorola scored 2012 against 1009 by the HTC One V. The CPU test came in at 5079 versus the HTC One V at 1271. The disk test came in at 2816 against 1249. Memory test came in at 2298 versus 1311. And the 2D graphics test came in at 2397 versus 1392. And 3D graphics tests at 632 versus 449. So there you go. Okay, so using this is Quadrant Standard app. You can see here how the device is scored. The Motorola scored at the top of the list of other phones that are out there at 4893. The HTC One came in at 1968. You can see they're very different phones, of course, but we compare them so that you can analyze and decide what you want to do. You can see here the totals down here at the bottom in white as to how they came out. Okay, so here you can see the speed test devices that both took and got. Now, keep in mind the HTC runs on the Virgin Mobile network with 3G only for this particular device. So there are some definite limits as to how much data the process can download and upload. Comparatively, you can see the results on the Motorola very fast. Okay, so now using the Velimo benchmarking tools, you can see here that the Motorola scored 1691 comparatively to 807 on the HTC One, 550 on the Motorola, and 294 on the HTC One. Okay, so what you can see here is we run the RL benchmark, which is an SQL, basically, an SQ performance thing that basically calculates how well each device processes data, creating index, selecting, doing all sorts of different tables and stuff. Overall, the HTC One scored with 30.09, and the overall score for the I'm sorry, that's actually the test results. The One scored 56.58 seconds to go through the process, and the Motorola did it in 26 seconds, 0.43. Alright, so in the end we like both devices. Both devices perform exceptionally well for given their size and format of what they do. And really it depends on just what you want to do and how much money you want to spend. With the Motorola, of course, you're working through Verizon, and you can go to VerizonWireless.com, that's VerizonWireless.com, and check out all the great phones they have there, and also the Motorola Razer M, which is a super fast Droid. And the HTC One V you can find at Virgin Mobile. That's VirginMobileUSA.com. That's VirginMobileUSA.com. Be sure to check out both phones. Tell them Chris Voss sent you. Chris Voss tested, Chris Voss approved. And thanks for coming by the ChrisVossShow.com. Be sure to subscribe to all our channels and come back often. Thanks for coming by.